Hey everybody, welcome to the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. I'm Mike Catalana along with Dan Fates. We are here 24 hours after we were standing here talking about football. We're not really talking about football today. The circumstances involving Damar Hamlin and his injury, serious injury in the game. We were there. We'll talk a little bit about what you saw on the field, what I saw from up top, what we both saw in the tunnel after the game, and where we are. This is not really about football, but the football part of it was revealed today. The league saying that they are not going to play this game this week. I think it was the only decision to make. Logistically, it would have been a mess to try to figure it out. Plus, these guys, Dan, we're not going to be playing football this week.
No, it's hard. We've talked about this. We've done reports throughout the day and on TV, and football is really the last thing you're kind of thinking about. But eventually there was going to have to be a decision on what was going to happen with the game and the postponement. The league saying they have no intention right now. They have no mandate or no rush to make a decision until they know more about what the health is of Damar Hamlin.
Yeah, so right now they're not playing. So the Bills are back in Orchard Park. The Bills were not speaking publicly today. They just issued a statement about Damar and his health. His family released a statement, just a classy statement, thinking about all the people that helped him last night, and thanking everybody for that, including the Cincinnati Bengals and their medical staff. You were down on the field. People saw it on television. I saw it from in the press box and then the replays, and you've been down there for a lot of injuries, serious ones that we've seen, right? Where guys are having their necks injured. We've seen that this year, or serious injuries. And this was just different.
Yeah, different. Kind of tough to put into words. I've been trying to process that. We after very frantic and still trying to put together the thoughts of it. It just felt very differently, very quickly. You had talked about you had never seen a stretcher get on the field so fast before, and how chaotic it felt on the field, and it was kind of a nightmare. It's obviously I've only been covering the team for 7 years. People that have been around the game of football for 55. It's unprecedented what took place. The one thing that will never really leave my mind is the players, the look on their face, the anguish. I saw it from the sidelines, then seeing the broadcast views of Josh and players hugging one another, chilling, just to know that it's a game.
Yeah, well, they're watching a friend first, teammate second, the way I kind of look at it, and they're trying to save his life, which is what they were doing. And it was pretty obvious that it was that circumstance.
Yeah. And what was also you almost don't realize it in the moment, or I didn't process it, was just the fact of the players came out on the field and you were almost like, okay, they're out on the field next to him. They're going to help him get on. He's going to give a thumbs up and he's going to go into the ambulance and the game's going to continue. I quickly realized that the players had their back turned to where Damar was. And I quickly understood that they were shielding people, the 65,000 people that were there, from seeing what was transpiring. It was guys with their backs turned, wiping away tears when they did look back to see what was happening. That was something I've never seen before. That was very traumatic to see that kind of response of, guys, we need to create a human shield right now for what is going on.
Yeah, it's cardiac arrest. They're trying to determine exactly what caused it. It does appear, based on what we've heard a lot of people say, and medical people try their best to not speculate, but they are talking about the force. And we've seen it in other sports, and it's usually something like a lacrosse ball or a hockey puck that hits someone that way. And it is that reason the heart gets out of rhythm, and he was quickly tended to. Now, what I found, listening again to experts talk about, that the only place maybe more equipped to handle something like this would be a hospital itself. Because the NFL, for all of their other faults and all of their lack of total help with player safety, they are prepared medically for something major to happen. Unfortunately, that's the way the game is, but there are doctors, there are EMTs, there are
medical personnel,
all different types of medical personnel, including the training staffs and all that can help. And both teams rushed to him that quickly. And I do believe, based on what I've been hearing medically, that appears to be the key to get him into hopefully a good position.
Yeah, we watched, I'm sure all of you have too, just the chief medical people coming on all the TV shows. And what struck me was that they had time to rewatch it. They had time to sit down, analyze it, diagnose it, have a sip of coffee, and then go on TV prepared. Those trainers, medical personnel, had seconds to react. And it gives me chills just thinking about it because of you had to make a decision. It wasn't a concussion. You had to do this, you had to do that. And they are talking about one of the big things was to get him to the hospital.
Yeah.
That's the first hurdle to get over. So that was a good sign. We're now waiting. We're not expecting to hear any news on his condition within the next 24 hours, maybe. But as we are here today on Tuesday in the afternoon, don't expect to hear much more today.
Yeah. At first I was, again, being unaware of anything in that way medically, that there did not appear to be a panic, a rush to get that ambulance out and go. And I know that concerned a lot of people. But again, listening to some medical people talk about the fact that they waited for Damar's family to get in the ambulance with him to go was a positive sign, because the key there is securing him to get him in whatever they needed and not to be moving him until that was done. And then I think they felt good until they were to get him to the hospital, and then everything continues from that point. I was thinking about so many of the players, and you're down there with them, and we see them leave the field. But I was really thinking of Dane Jackson. I mean, they are teammates, like brothers, University of Pittsburgh together. And you go back to the Titans game, and there's Dane with the neck injury going off the field in an ambulance. And I remember thinking, wow, you don't see it that often that there's an ambulance on the field. It does happen. Yeah. And here it is twice with two different players. And at that moment, that felt like, how bad is this for Dane? Yeah. And fortunately, he's been able to recover from that, and he was good. But, Damar's watching that, and he was distraught that day. And I was seeing Dane that way, and it just gets you for all the players, but especially for those two together.
Well, it's a little different in the sense of, I was there on Thanksgiving when Trey White last year walked off in tears, and I said, this is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
The fact of, that's a serious knee injury. He knew that the next year of his life was going to be different.
Yeah.
This was completely different. Yeah. You talk about injuries and football players. They are wired differently. They see broken bones. They see guys knocked out cold. And then 5 minutes later, they are back playing. Yeah. They are a strange, unique breed that can compartmentalize that. There was no compartmentalizing what took place. The traumatic incident that they saw, that you, the viewer, possibly saw. The other thing I can say is that we were very scurried around the media where we couldn't be in the tunnels, and obviously making sure the pathway in the stadium from locker room to locker room was open for everybody to move about. I can say that there were psychologists that were passing through to get into the Bills locker room. This is, again, a massive, how do the Bills pick up and move forward? Yeah. We can talk about that next week. Right now it's Damar Hamlin, and it's the mental health of what everybody just went through.
You mentioned that. There was that moment after Damar is leaving in the ambulance that the team starts basically warming up. And I remember thinking, wow, they're gonna play. And I think the Bills defense walked on the field. The Bengals stayed to the side. And I don't know, and the NFL is getting blamed for this because I think they kept saying on the broadcast, I think it was Joe Buck kept saying, they were told they have 5 minutes to get ready. I don't know where that came from, and I don't imagine that has to be somebody making a mistake or interpreting something the wrong way, because these players are wired that way. It's almost like if somebody said to them, you got to do this, I don't know how they would handle it, but it did seem to be that was going to happen. And I thought at the moment it was strange, and then the next thing you know, Sean McDermott and Zach Taylor are coming out together, and they're meeting, and then, boom, the Bills are heading to the locker room, which was obviously the right thing to do. But if somebody from the NFL really thought that, then that's a wrong person in that spot, because the referees didn't feel that way, the players didn't feel that way, the coaches didn't feel that way. Those guys needed to get in the locker room.
Yeah, it was, I remember tweeting just the fact of they're wiping away tears. And it's, I don't know how you're going to try and run a cover 2 or whatever you're going to do defensively. So it was the right decision. At this point, I don't care that it took long for them to officially postpone it or temporarily. I don't care. That's not important to me.
You're right. That's different to me than somebody actually thinking you could start the game in 5 minutes. They got him in the locker room. This was not some simple circumstance. So to give you a picture, I walk downstairs. Dan had been out on the field. I'm right in the area right outside the locker room. That's where we go. That's where all of our equipment was. And we were there, and the players were in the locker room, and every once in a while somebody would come out. They moved us around. I'm on the other side, and all of a sudden Sean McDermott walks right next to me, and a person from the NFL hands him a cell phone. He's on the phone. I'm from here to the camera away from him, and I'm trying not to be in the way, but then Zach Taylor comes over. Like, this was a fluid situation. This wasn't just walk in the locker room and Sean says, hey guys, we're not going to play. I mean, guys are emotionally wrecked. They're crying. They're upset. I mean, just what you might think of it was until they got that. I think at a certain point, I think everybody knew they weren't playing football.
Yes.
I think it was pretty obvious, but there were things that needed to be taken care of. So I'm with you on that. I just think if anybody really thought they were going to jump right out and play football, they compartmentalize, not this.
No.
It just
and we're, again, we come on this channel to talk to you about football and joke around. And it's hard to even, that's why we didn't put out a video last night.
Yeah.
It's hard for us to find the words. This isn't what we normally do. This isn't what the Bills normally have to deal with, any of these things. So yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. I was on the field or at the game when Kevin Everett, Bills fans will remember, was injured, and we've seen many of those where a player's injured and he's strapped in, taken to the hospital. Now they do it, they're much more aggressive with that now. But in hindsight, when people learned pretty quickly of what happened there, that was life-saving measures on the field for Kevin Everett. It could have happened that day. Dr. Cappuccino became very well known for what he and his people did that day. But even in that moment, I don't know if people knew or even the players were as aware of how serious it was. He left the field and the game continued. It was in September.
And I think that's the other thing too, is that this is so foreign to us. Seeing CPR administered.
Yeah.
Like I said, jarring, chilling, numbing, all those things. But to the other side of those medical personnel, those heroes, they were trained for that. They jumped right into action. Like, I guess I can't stress that enough. Talking to other people, and they're just saying, like, yeah, this is what they're doing. This is standard. This is standard. People deal with this all the time in the ICU and things like that. So it's amazing that they have those people to do it, because it's unfathomable to us.
And it's something. The rarity of this is these medical personnel from, again, sometimes when things happen, you read about it. They do planning meetings before games. They understand who's there.
The routes to the hospital.
But here's the difference. A normal medical personnel, whoever it is arriving on a scene after something has happened. In this case, they're standing there watching a game, watching it happen, reacting, and then treating a person in front of 65,000 people with the chaos that goes on. And I also say this, I thought the Bengals fans were great. I think the place it got really, really quiet. They cheered for the Bills when they left the field. And I know that's what people should do, but in our world we are in, sometimes that doesn't always happen. Their medical people were great, and it's a positive in that way. And this gets floated out there. Thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers. That's exactly what it is for Damar Hamlin. His family appreciates it. Bills fans appreciate it. We appreciate it. And he's a young guy. He's 24 years old. We want to see him getting healthy and back and strong, but we all have to wait, just like we said. So we'll have plenty of updates. You guys will be following stuff. You know, when the football stuff comes around, we'll be telling you about it. But for right now, we just wanted to tell you what we experienced and what we're hoping for going forward. So for Dan Fates and Jenna Cottrell, our entire team at Buffalo Plus, I'm Mike Catalano. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.